What is up, everyone? We're back for another Swing for the Fences show, Run Pure Sports. Busy day on the YouTube channel. Was watching Tony and JSU go through the Masters show, which went north of 2 hours. If you missed that, you got some time to rewatch it before tomorrow. Obviously, we have the Masters starting tomorrow morning. Always a great week. We had the Final Four and the National Championship game going right into baseball during the week, and then the Masters during the weekend. I got stats with me today. How's your week going?
It's going well, man. Busy, but I love this. I love the match. Like, you get the Final Four finishes. See, we get the Final Four right into the Masters every year. And so this is one of my favorite weeks in all of sports. I mean, there's nothing better than the Masters.
Yeah, I don't play too much golf DFS, but I'll definitely be in there this week. I'll be playing 150 and the $10. It's hard not to, like the contests are so good this week. We'll be watching all weekend anyways. I think you've got some fun plans for the weekend, I heard. But before we get into this 5-game slate, any thoughts on, like the Final Four and the National Championship? Haven't talked to you since those 3 really, really good games.
Yeah, I mean, look, we did the show right before the tournament, and we said there was a chance, and it was a fairly good chance that we might get all 4 ones in there. Like, no one wants to put that in their bracket. Like, it's kind of boring to put all the chalk, but this was the best. I think it was the best 4 1 seeds collectively I've ever seen.
Yeah,
certainly Ken Pom, I think, kind of backed that up. But we didn't have a lot of really great games on the tournament on the whole, but then you get 2 pretty good ones down the for the Final Four, and that championship game was pretty good as well. So we kind of ended, I think, on a high note. Shout out to my mom who won my pool, by the way. If the chalk hits, my mom's right there, so she took it. She called me up laughing. She's like, "I didn't watch a game of college basketball all year." I said, "Well, yeah, that's typically the people who win it."
I did terribly in the pools that I was in, but we got a bunch of messages talking about how that show helped people win their brackets. My girlfriend won her bracket with all of her girlfriends from watching the show. So, my sister won hers. Somehow I, built a shit bracket based on the information that we gave. But it was a fun Final Four. Congrats to Florida for pulling it out, man. What a run. I think I saw the stat, like in the last 6 weeks, they beat 7 out of the 10 teams in the top 10 at Ken Pom. Just a crazy run.
I mean, to win this to win it, you'd have to say, I mean, whoever won it was going to have one of the toughest routes through to win, just because of the last few games that you had to play. I mean, I had one of the best brackets I've ever picked in not in my pool, in a buddy's pool, until the Final Four, where I had Duke beating Auburn.
Auburn. Yeah.
Was it? Yeah, Duke beating Auburn for the. No, I'm getting it wrong. I forget who Duke played Auburn, right? Now I'm getting it all mixed up.
Duke lost to Houston.
Duke lost to Houston.
Auburn lost to Florida.
That's right. I had Duke beating.
Because friend of the show works for ETR, Turtle, Alex Harden, had a chance to win that $1,500 buy-in on TK. He had Duke over Auburn as his final there too. So kind of same thing. But all right, let's switch over to baseball. We got only 5 games to talk about here, so we're not going to go the full hour. Note to everyone, lock is about 20 minutes earlier. It's 6:45 Eastern with that Toronto-Boston game, which we'll start with here. We got Toronto in Boston. Chilly temps here, stats, temps in the 30s. Friends over at Ballpark Pal have this as a very negative run scoring environment. They've got it negative 10% for runs. We've got 2 pitchers who have been very volatile lately, and especially to start the year, in Gossman and Tanner Houck. But their prices are down a bit, and on a small slate in this weather. I kind of want your thoughts on these 2 arms here first.
Yeah, as far as the arms go, I'll bring up my sheet. I mean, I don't have either guy particularly high. I've got Houck as my 7th pitcher on the slate, and Gausman as my 5th best pitcher. So they're not going to be heavily involved or they won't be heavily in the mix here for me in my builds, especially Houck. But as you said, it is not the greatest hitting environment, albeit we are in a pretty good hitter's ballpark. So the totals aren't terrible here. What do I have the team totals at? I mean, Boston, geez, they're the second highest team total outside of that Colorado game. So they're right in between Milwaukee and Colorado, and Toronto's down there pretty low on the list for team total. So I don't have a ton of interest in the pitching, but I do like the Boston. I like Boston bats here in this game. I think outside of that Colorado game, I think they're the best. The probably just from a pure projection standpoint, I think this is the best stacks, the Boston stacks on the slate outside of Colorado.
Yeah, I kind of wish Hawk was a bit cheaper here. I would have more interest in this weather at home in a game where we think Boston probably scores. He has not looked great, but neither have the Toronto Bats stats. I mean, they are dead last in baseball in ISO against right-handed pitching, just not much pop at all in this lineup. They don't strike out a ton either, which is why the projection is not going to be high on Houck here. But I could see him, if this was a 10, 12 game slate, I probably wouldn't have any interest in Houck. But on a small slate where we also have cores, we're probably not using those guys. And, we'll get to the Atlanta game where it's two questionable arms. I have at least some interest in Houck. I'm playing 20 lineups. I think he's an okay play. And then I'm with you kind of leaning into the volatility of Gossman with the Boston bats here. They're a bit pricey, but I think that's going to keep the ownership down. Sabres got them between like 6 and 12%, which on a 5-game slate with the second or third highest team total is pretty interesting here.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a decent leverage because the Gaussman is right now. I think Sabres got him as the third highest owned pitcher on the slate. So that's what's suppressing, I think, the Boston ownership. I think you can get really nice leverage with Boston, especially if you want to get away from the Colorado game, which is going to have the bulk of the ownership here on a short slate. So I like that. I like that move. I like the ball over anything else in this game. I think it's the Boston stacks for me that look good, and like you said, I mean, I just wish Houck was a little bit projected a little bit better with the strikeouts. Just 3.5 is the total. It's juiced to the over, but he is projected for a decent amount of innings. 17.5 outs is his problem on the out prop, but just his K per inning, as far as the projections go, it's one of the worst on the slate. So that's what's really keeping me off him here tonight.
Yeah, I think the reason I have some interest, A, because of the duration upside, and B, I don't think we're going to get like a massive score from any of these pitchers on the slate. The highest projection we have on a pitcher is, between 17 and 19. No one projects for 20 here. I don't know. I think I'm going to play some Houck here. I wish he was 7K, not 8K. But so if you're not on him, do you have any interest in the Toronto Bats here? I just really do not like their lineup outside of Vlad and Santander. It's a bunch of, like we said, guys without much pop, kind of slap hitters, especially the bottom 4 of their lineup.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of interest in the Toronto Bats. You're right. I mean, Santander, I think probably your best option there. He's the best option for that entire lineup. But this lineup, we've talked about the boom sheet, and I think everyone's really liked the boom sheet over at RPS and our Discord and whatnot. You've got, what is it? Six players are listed in the bottom quartile, which I've got rated as the low boom. 6 of their guys. So you got Santander's on the elite level, and no one else is above the 50% mark as far as this entire slate goes on that roster. So just
get some Houck in there, Stats. Let's get some Houck in there. You
can't. No, I get why you want to play Houck, and your logic is sound in the fact that one, it's a short slate, and we may not get anyone to break out here. Like we might not get a 30-point performance from any of these pitchers. So if everyone just lingers, if the best pitching performance is 20, 21 points, then the cost savings, he gets 15 for you. He very well may be in the winner. So I don't think you're wrong here in Houck, but if I'm making just a few entries here, I'm probably not using Houck. He's going to be in the 150 mix because most of these guys wind up getting. So I mean, 10% of them, 15, I think 15 tops. That'd be good enough for me. But if I'm playing 3 max, I probably don't use him.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's more of a 20 and up play than a 1 to 3 lineup guy. All right.
Yep.
Let's keep it moving. Let's go to Tampa. Your neck of the woods in Florida. Here we got Angels and Rays. We've got Kikuchi up against Pepio, 2 upside arms here. How is the weather down there? And what do you think about these pitchers today?
Yeah, we're having it's one of the most beautiful days ever. It was a little cool for us, which is great baseball weather. I'm sure it's going to cool down a little bit. It's in like the 70s today. It was beautiful. Mm-hmm. So, I don't think we'll have any problems with this game tonight in Tampa. But Pepio is my favorite pitcher. I think he's everyone's favorite pitcher, or at least a lot of people just by the projections on the ownership. My favorite pitcher on the slate, though. He's got projection-wise, I've got him the number 1 strikeout per inning pitcher on the slate, and at 7,900, that's gonna move him up to the top of my list. So I do like Pepe. I kind of like both pitchers though, because I like Kikuchi here as well. So they are again, I'm not going out on a limb. They're the 2 highest projected ownership pitchers on the slate, but for 7,900 and then 8,300 in a game that we've got some decent totals, team totals on this short slate. I think this is one of the better pitching matchups, and the fear of that stadium being a little offensive minded, which it is. At least the temperatures are down today, and maybe the ball won't be flying nearly as much. But I think Pepio also has got he's just shy of having the highest projected strikeouts on the slate from the betting markets standpoint. So his total is 6.5. Excuse me, on his prop bet for K's, mm-hmm. which is right up there on the slate. So I like Pepio quite a bit, and Kikuchi as well. He's 5.5 he's juiced heavy on the over. Kikuchi is 5.5 strikeouts.
Yeah, we've I think you have been as well. We've been pretty high on the Rays bats against right-handed pitching. I think their lineup looks much worse against lefties. The stats have kind of borne that out so far. 5th highest strikeout rate in the split against lefties so far. 26th weighted runs created plus. 29th in ISO. Just not as much pop against lefties. I think it's Kikuchi always a wide range of outcomes guy, right? Because he's a fly ball pitcher. But I could see him having the score that you need on this slate. I could see Pepio as well. People are usually averse to playing both pitchers in the same game. Makes more and more sense as the slate size gets smaller. I think playing both sides of the arms here makes sense. I agree with you on Pepio. The Angels aren't really a lineup that we're going away from. They have the lowest total on the slate here. Trout, dangerous, obviously, but just a lot of guys are going to be high strikeout players, and Soler, Moncada, guys like that. And then, we get a gift too. We get Tim Anderson and Kevin Newman in the same lineup stats at the bottom of this order. So, there's 9 outs right there between the 2 of them. So I think both these pitchers are main lineup viable. I think you can make the argument that they're the 2 best pitchers on the slate. They project the best, I believe. So let's just say, since it's a smaller slate, we do love both these arms. Are there bats that you want? Like, if you're not, I think for me, it would be on the non-Kikuchi teams, hunting some right-handed power against him. Anything for you bats-wise in this game?
Yeah, I think you can get some leverage here. I wouldn't be shocked if we get maybe a Tampa stack that does break out. So I would lean more to the Tampa side if I'm looking for leverage against 2 of the highest owned pitchers on this slate. And I agree. I think you look at the highest on the boom sheet is Morrill, and he is at 3,800. And then a lot of the guys here on Tampa, though, kind of projecting well. Jansen, Diaz, Caminero, those guys right there are on the higher level on the boom sheet there. So I would look, if I'm playing even in a 20 max, I may throw a Tampa stack or 2 in there just to get a little leverage on the field against Kikuchi.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are all high strikeout bats, which is why Kikuchi projects well, but they all do have power. Caminero, we saw it last night. Morel, Jansen, Caballero's got speed. He can get you points there. So In my 20, I'm going to have plenty of Kikuchi, but I am going to have some Tampa, but mostly as, one-offs, 2 and 3 man, just trying to hunt the power there against him. Any last words in this game here?
Yeah, no, I like you thinking there. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of high probability home run guys in that Tampa lineup tonight. So a couple of decent ones for LA as well, but a lot of high which is why they show up well on the boom sheet, because of that high probability or chance for a home run. So yeah, I think they make for a pretty solid leverage play tonight.
Yeah, the guy that I'm worried about pinch hit wise for the Rays is Curtis Mead hitting third. He probably doesn't see any at bats past Kikuchi, so just slight worry there. But I do like the other power bats here. All right, let's go to Atlanta. We got 2 gettable pitchers here, Taijuan Walker and Grant Holmes. After we saw Wheeler and Sale both get blown up last night, stats. That was kind of surprising. Lots of hard hit balls against both guys last night. Much different pitchers on the mound tonight. We've seen a slow start for the Braves, but they are back at home here. What do you think about this game, pitcher-wise, with Holmes and Taijuan Walker?
I mean, with a Colorado game where I've got, obviously the pitchers aren't rated really well, I got Taijuan Walker as the worst pitcher on the entire slate. So that'll let you know what I think there about Walker. And not all that high on Grant Holmes here either. So he kind of fits in the Tanner Houck discussion for me. But you're saving a lot. You've got the 6,500 on Holmes. I mean, the K per inning number is not terrible. Let me look where they're at in the betting markets. But I could get on board there a little bit. But this is a pretty high total overall. So what do I've got? Yeah. What do I have on the totals? We've got Philly at 4.48, Atlanta 4.67. So they're kind of both in the middle of the pack as far as totals go. I'm really not going to get too excited about the pitchers. Like I said, Walker I've got as the worst pitcher, and then let me try to find Holmes here. So Holmes is 4.5 strikeout, heavily juiced, like almost minus 200 to the over. So that's why I said we may get a decent amount of strikeouts per innings. He's only projected with the prop at 15.5 outs, so barely 5 innings that he's going to get you there. But at the 6,500 price tag, you want to mix him into a lineup or so. I'm cool with that, getting a little bit of Holmes in there. If you want to spend up, you've got some maybe Milwaukee bats or something like that you really want to pay up for, and you want to get down and definitely differentiate yourself, because I don't think we're going to get particularly high ownership here. Certainly not on Walker. And the Holmes they're coming in 24%.
Yeah, Holmes. Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up is, to get the full top of the order stack for the Brewers. Some people are going to play Holmes here. Yeah, 25% on an arm like him against the Phillies.
I get it. Yeah, I just don't. So at that 24% number, now that I'm looking at his ownership number, I'd want to be under that for sure. Yeah. On my 150 stack, on my 150 lineup builds. So I think that 24% is going to be a little high for me. But certainly you're going to want to mix him in there. Probably if you want to avoid him in the 3 max, I'm good with that. 20 max, you're probably going to have to mix in a couple. So on a 20 max, if you had 2 or 3, I'm good with that.
Yeah, my issue with Holmes at the ownership is every Holmes team is going to have a 5-man Brewers. Like, that's right. I think a cool way to play him would be to stack the expensive Boston guys, something like that. Just to get a bit different from the field. I don't love the thought of 25% owned Holmes, and because of that, I'm seeing every Philly bat under 10% on this 5-game slate in Atlanta against a pitcher who, has some K upside, but we do know has implosion upside as well. I kind of like the Phillies bats here as not my favorite stack of the slate, obviously, but I think my favorite low-owned stack of the slate. We saw them kind of get going last night, and they always do have cheap bats outside of their top 3 that make stacks doable. What are your thoughts on Philly, Atlanta bats here?
Yeah, I love your logic there, because what's happening is, like you said, it's the Holmes is he's getting ownership because he fits.
Yep.
He fits with that Milwaukee bats. And that's where it's coming from. So it's not necessarily what we're projecting. Like we're not necessarily projecting him out to be one of the better pitchers on the slate. So we could take advantage of that. I agree with you with the Philly bats. And I think you do it with the expensive Philly bats here. Yep. Yeah, you can mix it. You're going to have to mix in a couple of cheaper bats here if you want to do that 5-man stack. But I love the top guys. I love the Harper, Schwarber, and Turner there. And then start with that. Even if you put a 3-man stack, if you want to mix that in. But yeah, I love the fade or the leverage play against those Holmes teams out there. There's going to be, to me, just too high of a percentage on Holmes, and he does have the ability to blow up. So I love that play. Absolutely. You're going to get a real low owned Philadelphia stack. And then we can put, again, well, you're going to play one. I got to look at the pitchers here now that we're talking about it. So we talk about Pepio. I love him at 7,900. Maybe you get down to a Houck at 7,700 and go ahead and, if you want to do that and then play the expensive Philly bats, maybe with some expensive bats in the Colorado game.
Yeah. I mean, it's 1,000 difference. So the difference between Holmes and Houck is like downgrading one outfield spot, right? It's not that much of a difference. That's kind of where I'm leaning, is to be under on Holmes, over on Houck, over on Philly bats. Let's go to the Atlanta side for bats here. Atlanta has done nothing this year. They got going a bit last night. High strikeout rate, but we're probably not playing any Walker here, like you said. Braves are looking pretty popular because of the price tags. No one above 4,700 here. I do lean the Philly side, but what are your thoughts on the Atlanta stacks here? They're just going to fit well with the Brewers.
Yeah, I agree with that. So it's weird. Like when I look at Philly, I like the top end guys, and then I hate all the guys on the bottom. So I don't like their cheap options really. I do like their expensive options. And then Atlanta's kind of, I think it's more balanced. So I think you could play almost all the bats in the Atlanta lineup. I kind of like them. I like most of the bats, I should say, in the Atlanta lineup. Albies, Kalenic, Harris, Riley, Ozuna, and Olsen. I mean, those are the guys I'd be focused on in my stacks for tonight. But I like this. I just think it's a better offensive game than the pitching, and I think we can get some. We're going to get low ownership because Boston's going to get some looks, and we obviously know that Colorado game could be a very, very sneaky game to win your tournament tonight, especially with the Holmes number that he's at.
Yeah, and Sabres sim team totals are both higher than the team totals in the market, which is always interesting. All right, we got 2 games left. Let's go to Kansas City. We've got Joe Ryan and Seth Lugo pitching two good arms. Ryan, the most expensive arm in the slate at 9,500, has not put together a good outing yet. Has been held at 81 and 83 pitches. We know that the Twins' managerial situation can sometimes be frustrating on both ends for pitchers and for hitters. Obviously not a great start for Ryan. He's expensive here. Do you like him at all? And then Seth Lugo has started the year off slow as well, but 2 really tough matchups, Cleveland and Baltimore, and now gets a Twins team that is pretty free swinging and have not hit the ball particularly well. Actually, neither team has. They're both in the bottom 10 in weighted runs created plus and ISO on the season. What do you think about the pitchers here?
I like both pitchers. So I've got them as my third and fourth pitchers on the entire slate, Ryan being third. The prop totals aren't jumping out at you, but it is heavily juiced. They're both 4.5 on their props, both of them heavily juiced. Ryan is minus 188 to the over 4.5, and Lugo minus 175 to the over 4.5. Excuse me. Both are projected. Their props 17.5 outs. Yep. With Lugo actually pretty heavy juice on the over on those outs. So we're looking at maybe kind of accumulating some innings from both of these guys. They've got a decent K per inning projection for this game. With Lugo just about 1K per inning. It's the third best. It's about third or fourth best on the slate, right behind Gausman. And so I think there's some upside here with Ryan and Lugo, and I really don't like. This isn't a game I like the bats at all. So we've had some other games where we may get some. I think the leverage play against some of the higher owned pitchers, and these guys will be right around. I think that that Holmes level. I think right on ownership. Yeah. I like fading the home side much better than I like really a leverage play on the bats with this game. I don't really love the bats all that much.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm more at like my play style is I would rather take a risk on a bat that's 1,200 less than pay down for a chalk pitcher that I think is in a tough spot. So that's kind of how I'm going to play this one. I'm going to play both sides of the arms here. I think people will be scared to click Joe Ryan because of the way he started the year and the fact that he's 9,500. I think we have plenty of cheap bats on this slate to fit him in. We saw it on the early slate, everyone under 10K, and like you can still build lineups with Shohei and Betts and kind of whoever, because we do have so many cheap bats throughout these lineups. So I'm with you. I really like Lugo's price here. I think he's just like a safer version of Houck, like a guy who's going to pitch deep, not a ton of strikeout upside, but just feels comfy in your lineup. So I prefer Lugo if I had to pick one with the price tags here, but I do like both pitchers, and they'll both be in my pool. Let's talk about the bats. You said you don't have much interest. If you had to go somewhere with the bats, where would it be, and are there any that you like? We do have the Twins pinch hit risk throughout this lineup, especially when they face a right-handed pitcher. They bring in a lefty reliever, and guys like Julian, Wallner, Larnach are big-time pinch hit risks.
Yeah, if, on the bat side, I'd probably lean a little bit more the Kansas City stacks. I like a little bit better in the matchup. So, we've got some home run upside here. Obviously, Bobby Witt's always is always in play, home runs, stolen bases. But Perez, Massey, India, those guys, and India gives you the dual threat of a home run and stolen base there as well. Those guys I like here in there. You could even I always like Vinny P because he's got some home run potential as well. So I like if I'm going to stack one side or the other, I like the Kansas City side a little bit better, even though I think their projections are a little bit lower than Minnesota, at least on Sabre for the team total. But I think you've got better potential for some home runs here with the Kansas City bats.
Yeah, and honestly, so they're facing a slightly worse pitcher, but I'm really scared of the pinch hit risk. They've got the Twins have Kiersey in there. He's also a lefty that's probably going to come out when a lefty reliever comes in. So basically, over 50% of your lineup is big time risk to come out if a lefty reliever comes in. So I don't really like the Twins at all here. I basically X'd out everyone but Castro, Correa, and Wallner here. And then on the Kansas City side, I'm with you. I'm going to be playing 1, 2, and 3 mans of just the top 5 of the Kansas City order. When it goes bad for Ryan, we've seen it actually go real bad. So I do prefer the Kansas City side here, and I actually bet them first 5 as well. So any last thoughts on this game here before we move on to Coors?
No, I think that's the one everyone was waiting for, is Coors for sure.
Yeah, well, in the background, we were kind of trying to hold out so that we could get a Brewers lineup before we talked about this game. So we'll just have to kind of do some guesswork. Let's start with the pitching here. Any interest in either pitcher here? We saw Tyler Alexander kind of get thrown into the rotation, surprisingly through mid 80s pitches here. Has a decent projection, had a good outing last time out. Well, he doesn't project well on Sabre, but Captain's projection has him at 14, which at 6K is at least interesting on a very small slate. And then I assume you have zero interest in Senzatella.
Yeah, definitely zero interest in Senzatella. Yeah, I mean, I guess you can make the case at 6K for Alexander. I mean, Sabre's projecting him 8% ownership. And you're right. Yeah, the captain's projection is significantly higher at 14. With that projection, then yeah, he should be getting a lot more ownership. I don't like it.
I just don't think he's that much worse of a play than Grant Holmes is.
I think it's a lot closer than the market does as well. I agree. But you're looking at, he's a decent strikeout per 9 projected here. So it's how deep can he get into the game? Let me look at the at the betting markets and where they're at now. But can he choose? That's always the thing you hate. And the runs are obvious. It's like you don't get deep into the game either. So that kills you in DFS.
Yeah.
Is just not chewing up those innings. So what do we have on Alexander? They've got him 4.5 strikeouts and 14. That's what I'm talking about. 14.5 outs, juice to the over. But it's just that's the part that really kills you. Can his K per inning though could get us at 6K? He could get us 6 or 7 strikeouts in 5 innings.
Yeah,
and then that's and if he holds them down, which they don't have some crazy, it's not a crazy total that we're projecting here for Colorado in the market.
Right.
He could be in play. So I wouldn't totally throw him out. I'm not running to put him in. Certainly if I'm playing 3 maxes, maybe he gets one of your 20 max lineups. That's about it.
Yeah, no. And obviously this is not a guy that we would be discussing if this was a 12-game slate, but I was just kind of bringing him up specifically as a pivot to Grant Holmes, who's going to be 25% owned. He's facing a much worse offense than Grant Holmes is. Clearly it's in Coors, but we've seen pitchers do well in Coors, especially against this Rockies lineup that has a bunch of strikeouts.
Well, I'll say if you're playing 150 lineups, I would take if we say 25% is going to Holmes and 8% is going to is going to go Alexander, then I don't even mind being like 15% on both of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's kind of my approach that I'm going to take today. I want to be over on Alexander, nothing crazy, and then definitely under on Holmes. All right, let's talk about the bats. Let's start with the Colorado side since we do have that lineup. Alexander is a lefty, and Colorado's been terrible, but they've been much, much worse against righties. They've been respectable against lefties because of the right-handed power that they have in their lineup. They did just call up one of their top prospects, Zach Veen, who's in the lineup, who's cheap. I like him. What are your thoughts on the Colorado bats here tonight?
Well, I mean, the only low boom guy from both teams here is Bryant. So, but after that, Goodman always gives you a pretty good price for a guy with pop. So
he gives you a good price because he goes 0 for 5 every game.
He does, but he is the guy that the boom sheet was created for, right?
I like him too.
Yeah, you're gonna suck like that. That's the whole point of the sheet, right? It's gonna give you a bunch of guys who are going to be elite boom because they've got that boom potential. Like he could hit 2 home runs.
Yep.
But he's also going to give you a lot of zeros. So he's always up high on the boom sheet, 3,900 at that price. It's going to be tough to pass him up. I didn't even look here on Saber. Is he like the highest owned catcher projected on the slate?
They've got him at 25% owned, something like that. Also because the Brewers catcher is now 5,200. So I don't know. He just kind of
Contreras. Contreras. So he's not actually so. I think that's pretty good. If he's 20%, I actually think that's a pretty good number. That's pretty low.
Yep, same
there. So I like that. I obviously like the bats in this game. So, but Goodman, like I said, at that price tag, you're going to need him to fit in with a lot of different builds that you're doing. Doyle, I like that. 5K. Tovar. Those are some of the guys that I really like I said, most of this lineup, and the only one who's rating poorly is Bryant out of everybody on that lineup. So you could really go a lot of different ways with the Colorado side.
Yeah, Colorado's interesting overall. People might be afraid to click the left on left guys. So Zach Veen, the prospect, is a lefty. Alexander doesn't really have splits, so I'm not afraid to play, especially on a shorter slate stats. Like in a popular game, taking some of the left on left bats like a McMahon or a Veen here.
That's like, it's very rare do I look at stuff like that, especially if, this is a shorter slate, so you're going to play more. You're going to have to play some guys that maybe you normally wouldn't on a larger slate, but and especially in cores, I'm like, it means so little because the pitchers just don't go deep enough.
Yep.
That what are you going to get? Maybe 2 at bats out of your 5 are going to be against a lot. Who knows?
Right. No. The reason I bring that up is whenever there's a super popular team, I always check, like the 121 single entry, and the left on left guys, like say it's Matt Olson against a lefty, like they're always much lower owned than the guys who have the split. And I think it's important on, especially a small slate with a chalky spot. I think it's an interesting spot to get different is including guys like McMahon and Veen. I actually bumped both guys up here so that I get more in the projections. Any thoughts there? And then let's go over to the Brewers side. We've waited long enough, and they haven't given us a lineup, so we're just gonna have to go with the projected one.
Yeah, we'll play it by ear, but they it should be pretty obvious for the most part. Not obvious, but I think at least the core guys will know who's going to be in there. But I think your logic is sound there with Colorado, and I do think because of what I was saying with the the handedness and even BVP, like I think you wind up getting leverage sometimes because I think people overplay those stats.
Yeah, same. And we saw it last night against Freeland. Yelich was a little bit lower owned than the other guys, and he hits a bomb, off of the bullpen. So, that happens a ton. All right, let's talk about the Brewers real quick. High price tags here, which is why Grant Holmes is going to be popular. Top 4 projected guys in the order: 5,600, 6K, 5,700, 5,200. The back half of the order is pretty cheap. Hoskins is going to be a good play at 4.6. The projected lineup on Sabres got Frelick, Dunn, Mitchell, and Joey Ortiz in there. What are your thoughts here? How are you playing this? Obviously going to be a very own spot on the slate.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this will be it's projected to be the highest team total. So we're going to get a ton of interest. And like you said, this is the reason we're getting some of these cheaper pitchers that are getting interest on the slate. Mm-hmm. So I think I agree with you there with Hoskins. I mean, at 4,600, he's my favorite of the expensive, let's say, bats, because then you could go down and we may get some cheaper options here. I don't really love Ortiz or Frelick all that much. But obviously, look, you got to play when you're playing the stacks, you're going to be mixing it up and getting a variety of these guys in there. But the big guys for sure, Yelich, Churio, Terang, Contreras, those guys, I think, obviously are going to project out well. And we're looking for the one thing with Terang, like he projects well because of the stolen bases. Sometimes you don't get that in cores. Like people kind of like to play, kind of play for the home run in cores. So maybe a little bit of a downgrade there, but these other guys who were looking for the pop, and Hoskins is the number 1 guy on that list with the probabilities of hitting a home run here at that price tag. I think he projects out really well. So they're actually like 4 or the top 3 of the top projected guys on the boom sheet on the entire slate are Yelich, Churio, and Hoskins. So kind of take that for what you will.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I bumped down Terang. He has hit a couple bombs early this year, but that's not going to be something that he does. I want Sabre to give me Churio and Yelich before Terang. So I changed the projections accordingly there. And yeah, this is going to be a popular spot. It's going to be tough to not have at least some Brewers here. I wouldn't be afraid to play the Garrett, Mitchells, Hoskins, Frelics of the world. And I think it's going to matter as to how you play them, right? Like if you play the top 4 guys with Grant Holmes, just be ready to hold hands with a bunch of people.
Yes.
So I think, who you play the Brewers with matters a ton. I think playing Phillies with them is interesting. I think playing the lefties from Colorado is interesting. with them. And then I think,
or even playing Alexander with them,
playing Alexander. So I think that's the key to the slate.
I'm saying, I got it right. Sorry.
Yep.
I thought we were talking about Colorado for a second. Yeah.
No.
So
I think
that.
That's more important, especially on these smaller slates where there's just a clear spot, is kind of how you play them, and kind of thinking about builds that way. All right. Well, we made it 45 minutes and these assholes did not give us a lineup. So we got to wrap it here. Let's do some quick stuff before we get out of here. Any overall slate thoughts beyond what I was just talking about with lineup construction?
No, I like that. I like when you talk that way because it lets people, kind of get into your mindset there and think differently. You've got to think about what the rest of the market is thinking about and why certain pitchers are getting the ownership they are, and how you can sort of do the same thing they're doing and go in a different direction and get yourself some leverage. So like you said, the Philly bats, I think, get us some decent leverage on the field. I don't really love Alexander, but you can get different there by playing him with Holmes, which not a lot of people are going to have those two guys. So, I don't love it, but you could definitely see the logic behind it, and then taking super expensive bats. So there's always different ways to play it. And I like your breakdown on it.
Okay, cool. Let's wrap up with most important pitcher and then favorite stack. Let's take the Brewers out of play for that. So who's your most important pitcher tonight and your favorite non-Brewers stack?
I think my number one pitcher is Pepiot, but I think the leverage. I think I'll need Lugo here tonight. I think that's going to wind up being my most important pitcher on the slate.
Yeah, I think Lugo will end up being mine, but I'll mention Houck too as just another pivot with a good matchup against a team that is just not that dangerous in Toronto. I could see him putting up a nice floor score for you going deep in this game in that weather in Boston. What about stack? Your non-Brewers stack here?
Yeah, I think it's Boston for me tonight. So I'm going to go with I'll go with the Boston stacks. I think that's the best stack outside of Coors.
I'm going to go to Philly. I'm going to attack this Braves pitcher chalk here. I think that they're definitely stackable. They're not that much more expensive than the other stacks on the slate that are going to be popular. And they've got bats that we like. So I'm going to be attacking the Grant Holmes chalk and going with some Philly bats in my 20 tonight.
I like it.
All right. That's all.
Hold on. We got to give a home run call, because Friday I did the show with DC.
Yeah.
We both hit it. Someone hit a 20-1 parlay.
Really?
Playing both of our. I had Ozuna. I forget who DC had, but they both hit one, and someone in the Discord mentioned that they hit a 20-1 parlay on both of them. So we got to see if we could do it again.
All right. So who is your home run call on this slate?
I'm gonna go with the guy we were talking about, the boomer bust, Hunter Goodman. He'll get you one here tonight.
That was gonna be mine.
All right. Go ahead.
I'll give you one. I'll complete the Colorado two-man. A guy who was not in the pool yesterday, but is in the pool. Their top prospect, Zach Veen, there in the 9-hole at 3K. So you get a cheap two-man Colorado stack. Both guys hitting bombs tonight. Hunter Goodman and Zach Veen for us. All right, this show will be back possibly tomorrow. I don't think there's many games tomorrow, so if not, they could do an early show tomorrow. I'm not sure. But if not, then the next time you'll see RPS on a baseball show will be Stats and I again on Friday for what I believe is a monster slate. I think it's like a 13-gamer. So,
I'm actually I'm holding off on going to Miami because I'm going to do the show. Because then I can
really?
drive to Miami. Yeah, so I'm actually going to hang around to do the show with you and then head to Miami after.
All right. Well, we will not be talking about any Tyler Alexanders on a 13-game slate.
No.
We'll stick to the good plays then. But yeah, good luck tonight. Stats, I'll see you Friday. And everyone enjoy the Masters. And if you're an RPS sub, there's an awesome show tonight. I believe it's at 8 Eastern with JBC, Third and Schlong, and Sully is going to join them too. So if you're not a member, check out the site. I believe they're running some good deals for Masters.
Yeah, we have been on fire, and the golf's just been going really well.
I'm excited. I usually don't play that much, but I'm playing 150 this week. I'll be tuned into the show, and I'll be building tonight. I'll be in Discord chatting it up. So for Stats, I'm Steve. We'll see you Friday.